one of my favorite all time guests. I think between you and Rich, Nick, you guys have I've had you on the podcast the most. And frankly, if I could, I would just do like a just a revolving door of like just you and Rich every other week because it'd be a lot easier not having to schedule and hunt people down, and I like consistently know that we can have a fun conversation. Whereas I kind of roll the dice with a lot of people, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get through an hour or an hour and a half, and then there's sometimes I find good people that's fun to talk to, but I know
Appreciate that,
right
man.
now we have a ton of stuff to talk about, and we're talking. I think I made a conscious effort this time of saying like, let's just stop, let's record because we're going to spend probably 20 minutes shooting the shit and talking about cool stuff. And people are going to be like, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall and heard that conversation.
No, I appreciate you're a genuine conversationalist. So you enjoy the sport of good intelligent banter, and I like the fact that you come at it at a very respectful level. Because sometimes, and at least I don't know, maybe I do this more so because I'm a weirdo. Like I will purposely say something that I know I want a response, and I want that stance because when you get intelligent people talking about things that they're either they really care about or they really don't care about, you can tell really quickly how fast or how far this conversation is going to go.
Oh yeah.
And with you, if I can give you a good enough topic or a good enough thing to talk about, like it's basically like you pull the cord of the action figure, and he's just going to start going forward, man.
That's my favorite. Like I there's a handful of people that I speak to on a regular basis where I know like I can just throw something out there, like not even a full sentence, just like a few things, like just get kind of midway through a sentence and they can just talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes. You're like that. Rich is like that. Ezra's like
Yeah.
that. Jordan's like that. There's a few people that are just like, they just go, and it makes my job doing this way, way easier. And then there's some people where it's like, you get 5 minutes in the conversation and you know this is going to be one sentence answers the entire time, and I'm going to have to ask like 40 questions to 50 questions to get through this, and that's where it's not fun and it's not enjoyable for the audience because it's then like I only have so many questions I can ask that I think are interesting. Then you get to the bottom of the barrel, and you're asking questions that you know are like boring bullshit like questions that nobody cares about, but I gotta fill I gotta fill an hour, so it's
No, it is tough. I see you. And I guess like right now, so we are April 30th, 9:05 a.m. PST time. And we're officially 1 week through iOS 14.5 absolute shenanigan and bullshit. And I won't let this plague our entire conversation because I've been basically hammering calls and talking to the team and clients because you know the industry that we're in. We're the e-commerce industry. And we have a couple of lead generation brands that we're just starting to get into because my brain's going like, I don't know what's going to happen, and we made plans to not use conscious plans to not use a Wicked, not use a Hyros, not use any sort of Trackify, not use anything that we would have to get locked into some sort of contract. Was that the right decision? I don't know. Should I have gone down the path and kind of subscribed and try to negotiate a deal to cut out early? I don't know right now. But what is really confusing, what we're seeing across, what do we have, 27 brands, over-reporting and under-reporting,
yeah.
and just we didn't have add to carts or initiate checkouts all yesterday. I don't know. Unique metrics are gone, which kind of makes sense to me because they don't want like unique metrics is supposed to count the individual unique user or that unique action happening. And if they're aggregating data, obviously they're not going to give me any unique numbers because they're trying to give me some sort of other numbers, right?
Yeah, it's I feel like today we could talk about the tips and things to know. We can maybe get to that, but like I feel like everyone's talking about that, right? Everyone has solutions and trying to do things. Frankly, like the way I view it, and I could be just totally wrong about this, but I don't think anybody in our industry knows what to do right now. Like I think people might think they know what to do, and I think they genuinely are coming from a good place, and some might actually land on the right spot just because they're shooting in the dark, and it could end up hitting the right bullseye there. But like there's shit happening that like I didn't see, like the under and over reporting we were talking, like I didn't see that. I figured going into this, everything across the board is going to underreport, right? We're going to lose 30, 40, 50, 60% of our signal data because of our iOS users. None of that data is coming in, and even aggregate measurement, like it's not going to over. If anything, it's going to be way under.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can't you can't put together a strategy or use any type of assumptions or modeling if the data coming in it's so significantly off, right? We were saying before, if we knew everything was coming in under, and like I would almost rather, this might sound crazy, but like I would almost rather just have like Facebook not even bother, at least in the beginning, to try to do this aggregate measurement, and me just go in knowing that like all iOS users I can't see, and then I can just use some basic math of like looking back at my store. Okay, here's a percent of customers or iOS customers. It's 50%. So I'm just going to bake that in and assume that every day my CPA is effectively double on Facebook what it really is. Like I would almost rather just some really basic stuff in the beginning than this where it's you're all over the place and you can't really do anything with the data we're being given.
No, and that to me is the most frustrating part. Is okay. Listen, we have a community of I think 1,000 marketers that went through the very first course that I've ever done. I've waited 6 years to build something because I was never even info. I didn't understand the value of info for the rest of the business. I didn't understand the value of info for building a pipeline of leads. Like I didn't respect it. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't respect making info because the world renounced of those who can't do teach, right? Like that always rang inside my head. And the godfather that taught me everything, the one that like really showcased how and to really build a community was obviously Tim Bird, who's making a resurgence back with you and your team on the founder community, founder mastermind that you guys have. I didn't understand it until I did it. I'm like, okay, this is why you build a community. It's because these people can continue to build off of the ideologies and the thought works and the effort you put into it. And then it morphs. And then it turns into different things. And then you get re-inspired, like, oh shit, actually, I'm going to implement some of this stuff and add in my other perspective, because ignorance is bliss, especially right now when we have new brands or new offers coming into the ecosystem. Like, oh, Nick, what should I expect? Like, I'm really nervous. What's going to happen? First of all, you don't know what you don't need to know what's going to happen because you don't know how good it was. So you're going to come into expecting like this is normal for me, when in reality it is normal for you. Like there's nothing different for you because you don't know how it used to be. Me, you, a couple of the people that are doing this stuff, you sit here going like, oh shit, this is different. Okay. Yeah, I can't do how I used to do it, so I'm gonna have to adjust this real quick, which we'll get to, and that'll be like a week and a half from now. But if you're jumping into the space, or if you're someone that's like just about to begin, or you're transferring into this industry, don't freak out about what's going on. Like you are almost at a level field with like proven experts in the space, and you should be fired up and be very, very excited about the opportunity at hand, because guess what? Facebook's too big to fail. I have to tell you this one quote. I saw this yesterday and it was retweeted because earnings for Facebook's Q1 came out, and I'm going to pull this up real quick.
They were
and
massive.
I retweeted it, and I was
massive earnings.
Okay. So on that note, Chris Micklin posted this. Facebook reported revenue of 26.17 billion for Q1, which was up 48% year over year. They attributed the significant increase in revenue to 30% year over year increase in the average price per ad and a 12% increase in the number of ads delivered. I feel that is how he ends that quote. Did you feel this? I felt this.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because if you're Facebook, like you have this weird dynamic where you have a fiduciary duty to shareholders, right? And you have to get these earnings calls, and you have to get them excited and fired up, right? So you have to publicly go out there and say, basically, all of our, the people that pay the bills and people that are growing our business, like we have to publicly admit that we're just like screwing you. Like this is how we made more money. Like we didn't bring on a ton more advertisers. We didn't add new service businesses. We didn't like none of that. It's like actually what we did is we increased our prices 30% and we served 12 to 15% more ads to our users to make the user experience worse. Like that's essentially how we made more money. And like to me that's what's interesting about this like ad world, right? And the social platforms is like they all have the ability to make our lives easier and better. And it's this weird balance they play if you're Facebook or Google where you're so big, where you now are dependent on earnings growth. You need to have earnings growth. You need to report to shareholders. You need to report to analysts. And so you need to put them first over advertisers. Like they could easily move some levers and make ads cost less. Like they can move, there's all these levers they can move to lower CPMs, to decrease the number of ads you're seeing. And the reason I know this is because if you look at, and obviously it's more complicated than that. It's a very big company, but like, let's look at Parler. Let's talk about them. So they're back. They just got left back on the App Store, both Apple and Google. They obviously got kicked off the App Store and basically kicked off the internet for a few months by a few companies. And this is not a political thing. It's just like I think if that happened to a company that had all progressives on it, I would feel the same way. We've been talking to them for we've been one of the first testing their ad platform for like 5-6 months now, and pre-shutdown, like the weekend before, we were spending $30,000-$40,000 a day on it. Like it was incredibly effective. Wow. But I wouldn't even consider an ad platform. It was I talked about this a few times, like a basically boosting posts is generous. You could basically run $500 campaigns at a time, accelerated delivery. There's no schedule, even though they have the ability to put the time in there, it would run instantly. You couldn't actually upload creative. You have to basically put the image you want to use in the metadata of the landing page. And then when you pull the link in, it pulls the image in. The headline comes from the page title. There's no tracking. So we had to use, like affiliate tracking, essentially software. So like super basic, but it worked for us. And so anyway, now they're about to roll out some exciting stuff, about to build an ad platform. I wouldn't even consider what they did an ad platform. But they want advertisers on the platform, right? They want to make it work for them. So we were talking to their interim CEO. We've been talking to their executives, and they basically said to us, like, hey, like, we want to make it work for you. Like, what do we need to do to make it work for you? We told them, we said, hey, like, we did the math and the CPMs are just too high. So they said, okay, like, what if we just, when you fund the account, we just double the amount of funds you have in there? I said, okay, so your effective CPM is 50%. Right? Because they're double. Yeah. Basically, if you're spending $500, it's effectively $250. So like, that's interesting to me, is that that is a possibility. Now, obviously, it's unrealistic for Facebook. It's not even comparable. But Facebook has tens of millions of advertisers spending billions of dollars, right? So them doing something like that is impossible. But the point of this is that like all these platforms,
it's doable,
have the ability, if they really wanted to turn that lever and give advertisers a break. And basically it's just them taking less money. It's, hey, we're going to charge a lower rate to advertisers to reach our users. And then everyone, it's a weird thing because they have to play this game of like, we need to make our platform work really well so people want to use it. But we also don't want to make it work too well so we don't make as much. Like they're finding this equilibrium of like keeping advertisers happy enough but making as much money as possible. And that's the line they're playing. And I think over the last year, Facebook pushed this line up too hard, like making as much money as possible. And advertisers kind of went like this. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do. The timing of that earnings, they had to have their marketing people, PR people say like, this is going to be really shitty timing to come out with our earnings the week of all our advertisers getting their asses kicked, saying that we made more money than ever, and it's because we charged more than ever, and we showed more ads than ever. So, sorry guys, like I know your life is pretty miserable right now, all these millions of business owners. It's just really shitty optics. And that can lead into this next part of the conversation, which is like, I want to talk about like the PR, like not the technical stuff, but like what I want people that are watching this who maybe aren't advertisers and don't understand what's happening, like to hear from people that have maybe a little more goodwill about like what's happening on both sides. Because I don't think this has been a fair PR battle. Goodwill. Yeah, I don't think this has been a year-long even PR battle. I think Facebook and Apple are not comparable in any imagination in terms of goodwill and trust. And so you have
why do you feel that? Why do you feel that then?
First of all, I think most people, if you did like a random sampling of Americans and asked like, do you think Mark Zuckerberg's human? Which they probably even like. I think most people don't even believe he's a human being. They think he's like just a robot alien who just doesn't have any emotions or feelings. So I think most people for Zuckerberg's entire career, even before Facebook was hated, were like, this guy's just an alien. He's just weird.
Weirdo.
He's has no empathy, no feelings. He's just a piece of metal, good capitalist going through the world trying to build this empire. And versus Steve Jobs and Tim Cook, who I think have different levels of empathy and respect. Obviously, Steve Jobs total hard ass and dick, right? But like people still respected him. They were like, this guy's can scare the shit out of me, but like I respect the hell out of him because I believe he has a bigger vision than just maybe making a ton of money. But I mean, Facebook just I think every opportunity they had. To drop the ball, they dropped the ball over the last few years.
Yeah.
All the way back to the 2016 election. I think like it's every kind of decision they made, PR wise, every single decision they made, internal marketing wise, corporate messaging wise, like they picked the wrong thing. Like, and obviously it's hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. At the time, I think they were doing things, in my opinion, right. Like when it came to all the platforms taking a political stand. Right, Facebook was the last holdout to not ban Trump, to not get involved, and they basically just said, "Hey, we're going to allow political ads, and it's up to the voter and the consumer. We trust that people are smart enough and have the freedom and liberty to decide whether they like this person or don't like this person, and if this person's lying or saying something bullshit, like that'll come out and that'll hurt them, right? Like, and they fought that, and that bit them in the ass, like that hurt them." Right. There's just all these things they did. And then they eventually banned Trump. And then that pissed off the other group of people. So they've pissed off every group of people at the wrong time. And so now there's just, and then you have the Netflix documentaries coming out, right? What was that documentary that came out? The Social Experiment or the Social Dilemma, right? Which was just a pure hit job. Like
literally,
it's a hit job. With real merit to it. Like that's the thing what's frustrating about some of this stuff is that like I watch it and there a lot of what they said from a like how dopamine works and how the brain chemistry like from a neuroscience perspective, like yeah, I think that's true. I just don't believe that it's like 100% Facebook and Twitter's fault, like that we're at this point. At least like I don't believe that they started these companies and everyone that worked there started them with the idea of like our goal is to make billions of people addicted to social media. Like I just don't believe that. I mean, I believe that some people perhaps might have, right? I believe that that's very realistic. That some executives probably like that was their goal, and some teams like that was their goal: gamify this, make it addicting. But I think if you're going to make that argument, like it can't be. It's like mutually exclusive. It can't be like, okay, only Facebook is doing this, but like Robinhood and YouTube and Spotify, like any of that, Netflix, like everybody's trying, like every company, right? Any startup I've worked with, any startup I've founded, any company I've worked with, like one of their goals is how do we get people addicted to our product? Like how do we get people to open our app all day long? How do we get them to come back all day long? Every game developer does that. Every video game developer does that. Like that's not a new thing, and I don't think that's inherently evil. That's just evil capitalism. It's like I have a great product, and I want people to use my product, and I want to use it more and more and more. Like so, yeah. I that's my spiel. I don't want to dive into obviously like the Apple side and what I think Apple's true motivations are, but I just ranted for 10 minutes. I want to get your thoughts on it.
It's so appropriate to allow you to go off in this direction because you look at things. We have mutual interest in both sides. We are Apple people through and through. Everything I own is Apple or inspired. These things like, why did I buy the most expensive headphones for no fucking reason? Because I just love Apple. Like I'm in that sense. I'm excessive in that manner. And even in the social dilemma, like people forget, like Apple and Google and Samsung and all these other devices, they made their device to be an extension and a part of our world. Whether it's the apps on it or not, they made it so simple for us to this just be as seamless as possible.
Yep.
Right. So like even the device owners in that sense are responsible for making it very easy to use in a consistent basis, or else we would have had a giant flip phone with the screen not open, or it would have been like this big of a phone. Right. So that the device, people didn't talk enough about that, is that it actually was if the device wasn't able to be enabled or create, or the app store wasn't available, Facebook and these Farmville and these Fortnites and all these things would not have been able to even
Yeah, they
exist
started it
because it
all.
wouldn't even. Yes, and people forget this. Like and I know we won't go deep into the direction of Apple because we've talked so many things about this, and we've seen the underlying in our industry. This is getting shared core at its core. And I had a conversation this morning with an old colleague. He's leaving the soccer world. Obviously, I came from the soccer world. He's like, "Hey, man, what's this e-commerce thing I'm hearing about?" Like it. And I asked him, I was like, what do you think right now is going on? What do you think right now, like this whole Apple versus the world scenario? And he goes, well, I mean, from my perspective, like they're just trying to protect us. Like the most, in layman's terms, perfect explanation of what the entire ecosystem outside of our understanding of our ecosystem is probably saying to each other. And I just put my head in my hand and it's like, oh shit, you don't see what's coming. The only logical sense for Apple to take such a hard stance on it is because they just want to fucking build it themselves. They just want to have their own ecosystem. They want to close the box. They want to make it so integral that you have to come not only to the devices, but you have to come to their ecosystem. They have to Amazon it, right? They have to black box Amazon it, play in their sandbox. And I know that's coming. So for me as an advertiser, kind of like you jumped on the parlor game, and I have a small note about the CPM stuff that I firsthand witnessed on TikTok and the growth of TikTok, and talk about addicting and getting a consumer to stay on the TikTok route. I would want to like analyze a little bit of this because I had a very interesting discussion with a couple of advertisers there. But on the Apple front, you and I both know that this is going to come into a self-service platform. It's going to come into an advertising platform where they're going to need advertisers like yourself, like myself, like the brands that they're essentially fucking over on the Facebook side, which I have a lot of faith in Facebook for two reasons. One, their money comes from us. Their core money comes from us and the advertisers and the dollars that we're spending. That means two things. Now, if they get too strict, and I'm already starting to see some people posting, more people are getting ED, erectile dysfunction ads. More people are getting some content arbitrage. Like there's a lot of things slipping through, and I have a vested interest in a CBD THC brand. I've never had more CBD or THC focused products, topical, ingestible, consumable that like you could imagine through with zero hassle. So with that being said, it's like, yes, on one end, there's going to be brands and there's going to be people that are going to be affected by this. And then on the very opposite side, before the conversation or my breath even finishes, you're going to have arbitrage. You're going to have clickbait. You're going to have a lot of these rise of what used to be bullshit marketing and bullshit tactics. And I think the consumers, us, and the other people that are choosing to no longer be tracked are actually going to be begging to get tracking and begging to get relevancy sent back to their phone. What is your stance on that? Because when you opt out, when you opt out of getting things that you actually want to see, you're going to get into this weird wormhole of like, what is this? Why am I getting ED pills? What is this?
Yeah, I mean, just so a few things there. One is just at the top level. Like, I think Apple's going to get fucked in a few countries because from anti-competitive business practices, purely just because of the way they launched this, right? And there's like, I showed on my iPhone, like their personalized ads settings when you go into your device and go into settings, privacy stuff is auto checked on. When you do for Facebook and some other apps, it's auto off, right? So when you're updating, so just little things like that to me show they don't care about privacy. It's like you can't say we want the user to have choice, right? But we're going to be selective in how we frame that choice, right? So for Facebook and our competition, it's going to be opt-in. For our stuff, it's going to be an opt-out. Like that right out of the gate to me smells fishy. If you just objectively look at little things like that, you maybe question it. Like, well, why wouldn't they just treat everyone the same and treat users with respect? Like that we respect your decision, regardless of whether it's us or Facebook. Like it's opt-out for everybody or it's opt-in for everybody, right? So I think there's a lot of little things like that they've done. There's lawsuits now in France and Germany against them that I think will be interesting. But yeah, I mean, from a consequential perspective, like this thing what most people don't see coming is that this change is not going to cause Facebook or Google or any company to go out of business. Like Facebook is one of the biggest companies in the world. They have some of the smartest people in the world. They have massive amounts of cash. Like they're not going anywhere, right? All that's going to happen is two things. One is, like you said, it's going to cause them to get creative with where their ad revenue comes from. So all of a sudden, like you said, they're going to start getting a little lenient on things. hey, like
Yep.
we're losing a lot of really high quality local businesses, bakeries, donut shops, gyms. They can't advertise here anymore. We need to make up the money, so let's let some of these, dick pill advertisers and crypto advertisers and CBD advertise. And not all of them are equal. I'm just saying they're all not allowed right now. Like let's let them kind of start advertising again. And so you're going to start seeing a lot of lower quality ads, a lot of scammy, spammy stuff, which people are going to hate because it's you're going to scroll into your feed with your friends. It's like, ooh, why do you have that in your feed? Like that's embarrassing. Like it's not going to be good. So I think that's one thing.
Yeah.
They're making the revenue somewhere else. And then the second thing is what you saw Facebook announce, last week, which is the expansion of their ecosystem, right? With kind of their own affiliate platform, connecting brands with influencers. So Facebook and every other company out there, essentially, that's dependent on ad revenue, is going to now be thinking, how can we do more what Apple does, which is how can we build out our walled garden so we have as much data as possible and control the experience. And now you get locked into more of these places. So all it does is give Facebook and TikTok and Snap and Apple and all these big tech companies just keep getting more and more control, and you have less options as consumers because like that's what they're forced to do to be competitive, right? Instead of being forced to kind of be open and give people choices, it's, hey, to compete, we are going to make you do everything on our platform. And and once you're doing everything on our platform, now it's really hard for you to leave. And now we have even more data on you. And like, it's not going to stop Facebook internally from doing shit with your data. Like, I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what's frustrating here is that if you're angry because you believe that Facebook is an evil company, yet you continue to use Facebook, which is just, that's another thing. All these people that protest it every year and never actually leave it, right? Doing this, like opting out of tracking, is not going to hurt Facebook in the long run, right? If anything, it might make it stronger and actually more of an evil company because they're going to expand their ecosystem. It hurts. The real people it hurts is small advertisers. Like that's a fact. Like fact
That's
is
it. That's
small
it.
businesses who are spending a few $100s a day, who probably 60+% of their customers come from Facebook. Those are the people that are getting just destroyed after a year of them being basically shut down. Right. So just like a double kick in the nuts, small businesses. And like, you're not making a statement. You're not holier than thou because you're telling, giving big tech access to your data. Like if you really want to fall on the sword, right? If you're a person that's like, you really believe in this shit, right? Like these companies are evil and they use my data for evil, nefarious things, and all advertisers are evil. Here's what you should do, right? Take your iPhone, take your Mac, take your Facebook, your Netflix, everything you use every minute of the day, throw it in the garbage, go live in a tent in the woods, right? Seriously, go live in a tent in the woods, get rid of all your devices, because all of those companies that you're using every day, even the companies you're using to protest the other evil companies, are doing evil, horrible shit. Like that's the reality. Apple makes a ton of their devices in China. China's committing genocide on people, right? Like they make their devices at Foxconn. Foxconn has had nets around their facility for years because so many people jump off the roof to kill themselves. Like you can't say like, same thing with Disney. Like people pretend like Disney was this great company. It's like, no, Disney in their Mulan movie,
films, they
thanked the different like cities around where Uyghurs are being basically put in concentration camps. Like all these big companies are doing evil shit. And so it's either be all in, like I'm all for it. Like if you really want to make a stand and say like big companies, big business is evil and they're doing mess up shit, like get rid of it all. Right. But don't like protest a select group of companies with your $1,000 iPhone that's made by basically slave labor in China. Like that's what I can't do. I can't deal with it. It's like the hypocrisy is so absurd. I just can't take somebody seriously because I don't in that vein. I just don't believe you. Like I don't think you're authentic, and I don't think you're genuine, and I can't trust your position if you aren't consistent. Consistency, I think, is really big, and I think a lot of people today in 2021, whether it's their politics, social views, I don't think it's consistent. I think a lot of people are making statements and doing things because they want to be perceived as being on the right side of something. They care more about perception. They care more about being woke. Not just people, but companies too. And it's a big problem. because you lose credibility. Once we get a little further in the future, people look back at this and be like, what were those idiots doing? Like, it's not
Yeah.
a good look in hindsight, in my opinion.
No. It's not a good look. It's never been a good look to be wishy washy or to like be like kind of in like I say this in some and I hope it doesn't take it. If you're half pregnant on that you have a half pregnant thought on this stuff because you're not fully committed, you're not fully into this direction. And I know how strong you are on your beliefs, and that's just why you are where you are, and it's why I am where I am. Is I believe in a direction. I'm going to stick to that direction. I'm going to go forward to it. And even when you have, and I'll change some of this gear to like what we're currently thinking about. If this is going to get settled, the biggest takeaway is like the big platforms aren't going to be as effective, right? Because they're going to have solutions. They're going to make their own clubhouse. They're going to make their own ad units. They're going to be like a podcast. They're going to do all the things they need to do to make sure that they have the revenue. They're just too big to fail. The people like us, the people like the brands that we support, or the businesses that are trying to figure out what to do next, I'm struggling to tell them exactly where they should go yet. I'm close to figuring out what I want direction for me and my company and my team to do. We got a team of 60 plus. Like I've never been this big of a company. We've never been this large of overhead. I'm sitting here going like, all right, it's okay. We can get this. Even when I get on my Monday or team calls on Monday, and my team looks at me like, Shaq, like, what are we gonna do with some of this tracking things? I'm like, listen, we're gonna stick to the game plan. We're gonna make sure that we're profitable as much as we can be, and we're gonna make as many decisions as we can with the information we have at hand. And we're gonna be honest. We're gonna be open. We're gonna be honest with our brands. And as long as they're making money in XYZ, then we're gonna keep going. But in terms of like a step by step, play by play approach, I'm really curious to see what the ad world talks look like, or ecom world talks look like, or even I'll be in Miami doing. Our geek out conversation, which I hope you get to stop by. It's not a single person is going to be talking about like on platform 2021 Facebook specific tactics around remarketing, or because we don't believe that approach of like being so granular on a specific tactic is going to be here in the next month to 2 months. And we had people going, hey, I really want to talk about this tactic. I'm like, listen, I need you to talk to me about marketing fundamentals, or I need you to talk to me about like your creative ideation process. I need you to talk to me about like how you're going from better PO orders, or how you're able to negotiate down because of all these common goods. I'm starting to see more and more Chinese products come in and be like, hey, like our raw material costs are going up right now because the American dollar is a little bit more shit. I need you to raise your prices. That trickles down to us on the advertising side. And majority of the brands that we work with, they don't do price testing. They've been locked in the brand because someone told them somewhere that they need to be 30%, 40% margin. And now they're like, yeah, that's what we're at. I'm like, wait. So you didn't price test this thing? That's the number one thing that I recommend you guys to do. Because if you're not price testing, if you're not even just having good conversations with your manufacturers, it doesn't matter what we do on platform. It doesn't matter what tactic you're going to apply because you don't have the right structure or the right business you're able to drive revenue from. And that is a conversation that more people need to be having. And that's a conversation that I'm trying to facilitate more often. Got a message today. They're like, hey, how do you like a lot of these people are talking about scaling and finding profitability, but like who's talking about getting payment terms, or what happens when you pull your money too fast out of PayPal, or if PayPal bans you because you're charging someone in a euro, but you're pulling out cash and USD. Like that's something I went through. I was like, I never thought Stripe was able to refund you. We run a French business. It's like a workout plan in France, and France, first of all, they don't even understand what chargebacks are. They're not even used to customer support. So like just having a one customer support rep emailing once or twice a day, they're like, holy crap, you're very nice to me. Thank you for the refund. We're not going to charge back. But we got booted off of Stripe, who auto refunded our customers because we were pulling out our cash in USD, but yet we're the money coming into Stripe was in euros. And I'm like, how is this even legal? What do you even do in this sense? Now we're having to shift to Braintree, we're having to go to other payment processors, but shit like that is way more difficult to deal with than I think rising ad costs.
Yeah, I mean it's the problem though is it's like that stuff's not as sexy and exciting, right? So it's
Of
most people don't
course.
want to hear it because it's more macro and ethereal, and like and two, it's a longer payoff, right? People, and this is a vast generalization, but a lot of people that I speak to, and I believe this country goes out, they want instant results, right? They want, I launched this business 2 weeks ago, and I want it to be $1 million business today. Like it's, and everyone, you should want those things, right? Like, yeah, I would love for our, portfolio of ecom brands to be doing $100 million, right? Instead of, tens of millions. Like I would love those things to be happening, but those things take time, right? It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of steps, and it's chess. You're playing to get to a goal, and you take, 2-3 steps forward, you take 1-2 steps back, and you keep moving that game.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's probably one of the net benefits that comes out of this, is that it basically forces people to stop caring about that because it no longer works, right? And so people will be forced to spend their time thinking about bigger strategies and bigger tactics that have more of an impact on the whole business, instead of like whether I use 5 versus 7 ad sets in a campaign, or whether I dupe something 4 times in a day versus 2 times every 2 days. Like I started telling this to everybody, and like, cause I just don't care anymore. Like I honestly, like, I don't care what people like it or disagree with it or agree with it, but it's just the reality. Like all of our friends that are very successful with advertising and media buying, if we sat in a room and we all just kind of like went up to the board and wrote out, here's our campaign, here's how we launch things, here's how we scale things, I would venture to bet that there's 50-60% difference, probably limited, maybe a 20-30-40% overlap in strategies. It's just our approaches are different, but you can get to the same end goal. And so that's why I know there's no like universally right strategy. If there was a universal like format and structure that worked, we would have all figured it out by now. We'd all be teaching the same thing, right? Like if like that's just the reality, and that's the way I get to like anything. When you look at like weight loss, investing, media buying, like all these things, there's no perfect solution, because if there were, there wouldn't be 1,000 people teaching it, right? There wouldn't be all these experts and books and things. Like everyone would have eventually came to the same conclusion that this is the best strategy, and this is the one that everyone should do because it's the best results. Like there wouldn't be diversity in strategy.
So true. It's because, and I'm gonna put this out there even again. We're speaking to English, like native English speakers in a U.S. North America economy. Like a lot of the consumption that we do on YouTube, a lot of consumptions we do on our community of teachers of digital, or teachers of execution of media, that's for our audience. Like there's other worlds in India, there's other worlds in France, other worlds in EU that are having to teach unique strategies, because that's how their demographics respond to it. And there's just no one way of doing things. And that's the downside, or the scary side of creating definitive, this is the only way that things can be done, because every single thing is situational. And again, it took me 6 years before I launched a digital product, and to a more beginner audience, people that are like newer in this space, and what they look like. And you kind of barely touched upon it. I'm 1 week in. Why is this not making me millions of dollars? It's so true. It's almost like a disrespect to how long it took for our grandparents or our other brand builders that took years and years and years to build something. And that's what Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat were blessing these people for the last 5, I would say 5 years. I would say 5 years is where a lot of these brands, or maybe 8 to 10 years, where like the Hims and the Caspers and the purple mattresses came up. They were building businesses not necessarily because they were unbelievably good at marketing, it's because they had unbelievable good funding, and the tools of amplification were way easier to use. How do you teach someone that's never been in this industry to log into Facebook and start making money immediately? That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in any other industry. You don't have a woodsmith or a blacksmith coming and be like, oh, nice, I'm an expert. This is unbelievable. A woodworker who's just gonna make me a fantastic chair that's perfectly even. No, you got years of work, my man, my lady. You got years of work to do, and you have junior people. It's kind of like the rise of Robinhood traders. Like there's like professionals. You go to school, you study, you trust, you win, you lose, and then all of a sudden,
it's a disrespect.
Go. I know you feel this.
Yeah, it's a disrespect to our history and past generations. Like that's the way I view it, right? It's like, listen, I'm all for confidence and wanting it. Like everyone should want more. Like we should all want a everything to be better, right? We should always be striving to improve ourselves, improve our financial situation, improve our social situation, improve our relationships, improve our, being a better parent, whatever it might be. We should always be striving to be better, right? But at the same time, we also need to realize that doing those things takes time. And if you look back at history, right? So like Robert Greenhorn's books, Mastery, which is a really good book about how you develop skills and how you become a true master in something. Talks a lot about the apprenticeship programs of the medieval ages, right?
Okay.
And that's where essentially we got, everyone now knows like 10,000 hours. That's kind of the rule of thumb, the gold standard, 10,000 hours doing something to become an expert. Well, that comes from that period of time where it was, if you wanted to enter a trade or basically do anything, you became an apprentice. And that was a 7-year program. And if you do the math, basically of doing something every day for 7 years, that's how you kind of end up at that 10,000 hours. So that's where that number came from. And that was basically, if you wanted to be a swordsmith, right? If you wanted to be an incredible swordsmith and make and sell swords, like back then, there weren't many books, right? There wasn't an easy way to share knowledge or transfer knowledge, right? Nowadays we have videos, we have audiobooks, we have all kinds of ways to somebody, an expert, to put their information down and share it with somebody else. Back then they didn't have that. So the only way to do it was, hey, you had to go work with somebody that's a master at this for 7 years and just be by their side every single day and look at their hands, the way they do things, and just practice and practice and practice. And after 7 years, you then took your kind of your test
skill,
right? Your kind of final test. And if you passed that, then you could go on the road and you could go to different villages and cities and towns. And now you could eventually, teach the next generation. Like that was the way it was done, right? Whether you were Da Vinci, like any of these people, like you spent years and years and years, right? Like Da Vinci, Mozart, all these amazing people that we have so much respect for, Einstein, like they spent a long time just scraping by, like foregoing doing the thing that could have made them a lot of money because of what they're passionate about. Like Ben Franklin, he decided to apprentice at I think it was a paper mill, because he wanted to be around books, right? He wanted to write and he wanted to have access to that. He could have done something different, and he got a lot of shit from his family because he didn't choose a different path, because this was like low paying, didn't have a lot of things. Like there's so many examples in history of people that truly were successful in the long run, that understood to get there, they needed to put their dues in and put their time in to become true experts, to become true masters in something. And then they became true masters in it. And, Charles Darwin's the same way. He decided I'm going to go on a boat, the HMS Beagle, for years and travel the world. The dude was seasick. He never been on an ocean before. He'd never been on a boat before and was terrified. Left home. His dad thought it was a terrible idea. Got in this rickety boat with a ragtag crew. They all hated him. Nobody liked him. He eventually learned their ways, their mannerisms. He studied them because he's kind of this anthropologist, like being able to observe people. And by the end of the trip, they were great friends, but spent literally years on a boat, circumventing the world, stopping in every continent, every island, and just collecting samples, just studying animals, species, all this stuff, right? And Charles Darwin, right? Like I think more people need to read like history. I think more people, instead of taking our courses, like I would rather somebody don't take my course, don't watch my videos, like go read a few books, go read a few, autobiographies, like of really successful people, right? Like understand history. And I think it gives you more respect for where we're at right now. Like we have it so easy, and it's the best time to be alive in history for everybody, right? Like there's no doubt in that. Every single person. Now, again, some people are way worse off than others in our world today, but everybody is way better off than fucking Charles Darwin having to circumvent the world for years, or the, medieval times where there weren't even books and you had to basically spend years in a sweaty armory, like to learn how to make a sword. Life's better, right? And and yeah, I just think like it's that disconnect between our history and how hard, like, the people we look up to, these icons, like how hard they truly work to get to where they are. And this expectation, like I can have the same level of success in a month or a year is insane. Like it's totally insane.
It's a disconnect and disrespect. It truly is, because people always ask, like, why do you guys start with mindset first? Why do you have to talk about like the positioning of things? Because like that's the most important part. Like if you can understand why you're doing what you're doing, where you're coming from, or what the expectations should realistically be, then you're going to have like the fortuity, or you're going to have like the general understanding of getting through the things that are going to suck. And that's why you have to talk about those things early on, is because things do suck. Like you have to love something enough to continue to get through it or continue to stick with it. It's relationships, right? It's a game of compromise. If you're everything you do, if you're going to build something, if you're going to build a company, if you're going to build a brand, if you're going to build a product, it's a relationship with the process of getting to a place where you're okay enough with it. Like, it's never perfect. It's never going to be beautiful. Like even the most perfect, most perfectionist, like ask Tony Robbins. This dude's a master of owning and running a crowd. I guarantee you, if you're asking like, what would you do to improve, the motherfucker would have a list of things that he would want to run through.
And here's the thing too, like this is why I love reading and like love history, because it gives you like, again, this respect thing of like, holy shit, like this is what some people did to be successful. Like it's like I complain, like I've worked really, I've been in this industry for 10 years and I'd like to be more successful than I am today. But like I see what some other people did. Like next time you think that you're really busting your ass to be successful and you're really being creative and like working outside the box, like Ben Franklin spent years. He wanted to write. Like the dude, all he wanted to do in the early stages was, I just want to write. I just want to be I want to be in the newspapers. I want to write a book, right? His older brother, who he worked for, wouldn't let him write, wouldn't let him write in the newspaper. So what does he do? He says, well, I can accept that and just not write and not build that skill that I love. I want to write. Or let me think, I'm going to create a pseudonym. I'm going to be this fake woman, right? And this is a true story. I'm going to be a fake woman, and I'm going to write in letters to the newspaper, and they're going to publish them kind of in this op-ed thing as like letters to the editor. And he did that for years until his brother found out, and he thought his brother would be like really proud of him for like that. And it went totally ass backwards and didn't turn out that way at all. Right. But like, that's passion. Like that's like, this is what I want to do. And there's no easy path for me to go forward. So I'm going to do some crazy thing where I'm going to create a whole fake person and write in their style, right, as a female, just so I can get my stuff published, like in a newspaper for years. Like you hear stuff like that, and you're like, that's why it's Ben Franklin. Like that's why this guy's Einstein. That's why this person is who they are, not because of one invention or one event in their life. It's because they lived their entire life like that. Like their entire life, from the time they were a kid
legacy
to the time they died, they gave 110% and they never took their foot off the gas, right? Like that's, and like Elon Musk, to my opinion, it's like a modern day version of that, right? He's a guy that like,
I agree.
You know, you could hate him, you could love him. That's debatable. But like, I respect the fact that he could have 15 years ago just started coasting, could have taken his few $100 million from PayPal, been like, I invented something really cool. I made a fortune. I'm good. I'm just going to stop. But like the dude had a bigger vision and knew to get to that vision, it's going to be harder work, right? There's a whole nother level of work and risk I need to take. So he takes all that money after he buys this McLaren that he eventually totaled. And I'm going to put it all into starting a company that's going to go to fucking space, and a company that's going to save our climate crisis, and, you know, all this stuff. And we're on the verge of losing it all. Like he literally, if it wasn't for Mercedes creating a licensing deal for their batteries, like they would have, you know, Tesla at least would have went out of business, which is crazy to think of now, because now they're like, you know, one of the hottest stocks in the world. But it's it's wild. And I do get worried about, and I know we're running out of time, but I want to get your thoughts on this. Like I struggle with this thought of like, I love the fact that in 2021, a 16-year-old kid can take his allowance and buy GameStop stock buy $100 of GameStop stock, and they can collectively, a bunch of kids and teenagers, everyone, seniors, everyone can do this, and crush hedge funds. I love that, and also make a lot of money along the way. What I don't love and what scares me is how perceived it is to be easy. Like, because you see these ridiculous examples of Dogecoin and GameStop, and because there's now, thanks to Robinhood, the commissionless trading. Because remember, like, if you're watching this and you're new to investing, before Robinhood, you had to pay a flat fee to buy and sell stocks. You had to pay a commission. When I first started investing, when I was 18, my dad had to tell me this because he was getting alerts saying, I was really into it. I was like buying and selling stuff. And he said, Max, you realize, like, you bought $100 worth of Apple stock and you paid Charles Schwab $7 to place that trade, which means that you have to make 7% just to make your money back on the trade. Like, I didn't understand this. And again,
I was 30 years old when I realized this from you right now.
And that could have been, again, commissions and stuff make it a little more, and not having the ability to do fractional trading where you can buy fractional shares in companies. It did make it prohibitive for most people to buy Amazon, to buy Google, to invest in the stock market. And I like the fact that somebody that might not have $10,000 to buy Amazon can put $200 in Amazon and buy a fraction. I like all of this, and I think there's a lot of good that comes from it. But at the same time, I do think barriers can be a good thing. I do think making things less easy and more difficult to do, there's merit to that, right? Just like there's merit to like becoming a doctor. Like, there's no shortcut to it, right? It's like you want to open my heart, my chest and operate on my heart. Like, I hope that it took you a lot of time and a lot of work to get to that point. Like, I don't want there to be shortcuts for certain people to get to certain places. So that's what I worry about, is like how easy it's getting to make big bets and think you can get rich really quick. I think we're at a weird tipping point where that's happening.
Yeah, I kind of like equate it to the people that win the lottery. Like, the stories of someone winning the lottery and the destruction to their life
Always lose every time.
Is like, it never goes well. It never ever goes well. And I'll admit to this. I am a Robinhood trader. I didn't get on this boat until I was listening to other people like, hey, like, you have a little bit of disposable income. You should definitely go like do this and play around with this. And I was like, okay, let's a couple bucks. Let's see what I can learn. And I wish that Robinhood made me prompt an educational understanding. Yeah, there's like click here to learn more, click here to learn more. But I wish there was like this educational series that I had to go through before I was able to like actually deploy a dollar. And I believe that I'm happy that it allowed the everyman to kind of get into it, but I'm not happy because the everyman is ignorant and the everyman is not that intelligent, which is the sad thing to say, is like the masses of America and the masses of elsewhere, like, we have a decently good educational system, still pretty stupid, right? Like, if you have a conversation with someone, they don't understand that Instagram is owned by Facebook or the WhatsApp is owned by Facebook or any of these scenarios. So we and others that are in the world of persuasion or convincing someone to part with their pocket, it's our duty to continue to educate and continue to be like, hey, by the way, this is not actually exactly how it works. The institutions and the Robinhooders and these other platforms, they have a right to do this. They have the right, and they have the responsibility that they should be educating, because just like a doctor can ruin your life by one wrong slip of the knife, man, you hit one extra zero on margin, you're done. Like, there was a terrible story last year about an individual that took his life, and in actuality, he didn't actually need to do that because for whatever reason. Like, there was some sort of deeper reason there, but you could ruin your life, your family's life, if you're playing with things that you don't have full consciousness around. And that to me is on the institution. That to me is on Robin and all these trading platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's the complete lack of financial literacy in like our country is like terrifying. The fact that most people like come out of even college and don't understand how our monetary system works, like how our stock market works, like this is what's funny. Not funny makes it seem like it's light, but like this is what's kind of ironic.
It's
to
interesting.
me. It's like it's interesting, it's ironic, whatever you want to call it. But like our government, we put so much focus on like, Social Security and funding all of these retirement programs and entitlement programs and stuff. Like, if you put a fraction of that money into helping teaching kids at the age of like 12 that, hey, once you start getting your first paycheck, if you just put X% into a mutual fund, if you just put, X% into an ETF, into just buy the S&P, whatever it might be, like, and you just keep doing that every paycheck and you don't touch it for 40, 50 years, this is how much money you'll have when you retire. Because the power of, and this is a sad thing, most people don't understand this, like compound growth. Like the difference in where you end up with at the age of 65, if you start investing $1,000 a month when you're 20 versus 30 versus 40 is insane. Those 10-year gaps are insane. So if you could start when you're 16, holy shit. Like I wish every 16
what was I doing?
Was taking, even $50 out of their paycheck, $50 every 2 weeks, $25 every 2 weeks into the stock market over decades. Right. And so it is frustrating to watch what's happening and I'm not an expert trader or anything like that. I have a lot of my buddies work on Wall Street and I have more knowledge than like an average person, but it is like watching people take massive risks and not understand margin, right? Not understand the difference in what buying an option, buying a call, right, or buying a put is versus buying a stock, how there's a multiplier effect on that. That's what happened with crypto last week or a week and a half ago. The reason it got crushed is because one, there was a big power outage like in China, which like impacted the hash rate of mining, but also there was a lot of people who had placed a lot of bets on margin using Binance and other places. So they were putting $8 in and basically on the hook for $100 worth of whatever the currency was, the cryptocurrency was. And all of that, they hit certain thresholds on the price and were forced to buy or forced to sell essentially. And that creates this massive tidal wave because all these there's amount of people selling, that pushes the price down because there's fewer and fewer buyers than there are sellers. But yeah, I mean, it's challenging to watch. And like, whenever I go, I was at Wawa, which is an East Coast thing. It's like a convenience store, but I have
it's a market. Yeah.
It's a market. I've grown up with it. And I was there. This is when the GameStop thing was happening. And the guy who's bringing up my coffee was, hey, like, what do you think about GameStop? And was like talking about this stuff. And I love the fact, like, it was bittersweet to me. I love the fact that like that guy was thinking about the stock market, but I don't like the way he was thinking about it. That's the difference. I like the fact that this is getting a lot of people to think and realize like, hey, the stock market is a great way to build wealth, right? I can put money in and it grows. And that is true. The time frame is what's off. It's people think I can put money in today and in a week I can have a lot more money. And that is not, 95% of day traders don't make money. 95% will never make money day trading, right? And you are not in the 5%. If you're watching and saying, well, 5% do, it's like the 5% that do have the most insane setups you could think of. You should see their offices, the technology they have, the software they have, that's like 6 figures, like insane stuff. They're working up high frequency trading. They're doing all kinds of crazy shit that you can't even comprehend. That makes it impossible for you to beat them. Yeah. You won't beat them, right?
And they're probably geniuses on top of the tech.
And yes, and they're very smart. So they have more resource to you, more experience than you, and they're also, their IQ is probably high. I'm not to be mean, but just like there's people out there, their IQ is higher than mine. Like that's just their reality. But yeah, it's frustrating to kind of see that.
This is the same thing. It's like instant gratification. I know we're over time on this stuff, but I think part two.
I know you have the call. So you tell me.
Yes, I do. I do. Well, my thing is like part two of instant gratification versus like I would love to ask your audience if they've ever had a misconception over where, like, question would be, under the understanding of instant gratification, are there things where you, before you got into it, whether it's investing, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's affiliate marketing, whether it's a relationship, whether it's building a home, whatever it is that you came into it going like, oh shit, that's way longer and it's way more difficult than I anticipated. I would love to see if there's like a way to categorize the top eight. Is it home improvement that they underestimated? Is it like building a relationship? Is it dieting? Like what is that? I would love to know if people had statistics or we can get some sort of like modeling around our audiences of like what areas did they believe instant gratification they thought was going to be a lot sooner than it really was.
That's a great question. So if you're watching this right now, drop that in the comments. What is that thing that, yeah, maybe just do like the biggest example of something that you thought was going to be way, way easier than it was. I'm curious about that as well. That'll be an interesting test, and we can do another episode. We just need to start blocking out when we do these, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, because we always run up against that clock really quickly. It happens like that.
I think I'll go earlier. I know you're East Coast, so like I'll start earlier on mine. And I know if you pull away from the kid, I don't want to take time away from family. But man, I appreciate seeing you. I hope I see you in Miami, my man. I really do.
Definitely. I'll talk to Larissa and see what our schedule can look like and see if she's cool with me hopping out for a little bit. We'll see. It's always challenging with the little guy, but we'll do my best. I always love getting to see you in person. And always love having you on the show, dude. Again, like I said, if I could have you on every week, I would do it. So let's schedule another episode ASAP. Let's continue this conversation, and wish you the best of luck, dude, at the Geek Out event if I don't see you there.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the support as always. Take care.
Of course, dude. Talk soon.